everyone. So we're back here today to talk about two stories, Sleep and Lederhosen. And we already, I hope everyone is noticing how certain things are kind of repeated. Even just the idea of, just to give a very obvious example here, like in the story Sleep, she, when she's reading, she suddenly feels this hunger, like she had never experienced any hunger like this. Is obviously what we saw in the second bakery attack. So that sort of small elements, but also a larger thematic kind of repetition we want to pay attention to. So, okay, Sleep, to begin with that story, but we feel free to go back and forth whenever you see connecting points. But obviously with the story Sleep, the first question is, what does that signify, right? Sleep, it means something. And or we can also say sleeplessness. And what happens when she cannot sleep, the kind of symptoms that she has. And also, most curiously, how the story ends. It's a very strange ending, so how to read that. So these are some larger, kind of broad questions that we will keep in our minds. So let's just hear from you guys what struck you. It's interesting.
I thought the end was kind of interesting.
Oh, you're gonna start from the ending? Yeah.
Because they started rocking the car,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of reminded me of like when you rock a baby to sleep. So I felt like, but I don't know whether to interpret it as like she was forced to sleep, or like it's inevitable that she has to return to that like sleeping room.
I see. Oh, I like that. She's been forced to go back to sleep. Okay.
For me, I thought it was much more kind of practical. I just thought the policeman told her not to go back to that dock, and she did. And now she was thinking a lot about death previously and talking about it, so I just felt like, okay, now like she being attacked, and I mean, we don't know what happens, but we can assume that like either she gets out of there and she is like, okay, like she's more grateful for the life that she has or something, or she just like ends up being attacked, and that's like the end.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, The Sleep was probably the darkest story in this whole novel. It was kind of very depressing for me to read, and that's why I'm going to be very curious about like your opinions on the subject, because for me it was mostly about like dissociation and trauma in this story, and the ending for me was like the manifestation of her suicidal thoughts throughout the timeline, especially with how she was focused on Anna Karenina from all of the novels, and it kind of ends with suicide, and then there was this talk about couple being attacked and her coming to that place. So I think that maybe that attack on the car didn't happen in reality, but it happened inside her mind. She felt like she was attacked and targeted.
Okay. Yep. That's great. We will see how how we're gonna go back to these points, or verify them, or perhaps revise them. So the one thing that we know is that just like in the second bakery attack, where the husband says how he had the same, experience, the same kind of hunger when he was in college. And she also says she had this attack of insomnia when she was in college. But her point, so in both cases, they both say, but it's not the same, right? So in her case, she says insomnia, that was really a kind of very very obvious case. She felt like she was tired all day because she felt like she was swimming through the day. But then here, when she doesn't sleep, she comes alive, and it's most important part of that coming alive is how her body is different. She can swim so much more faster, and everything that she does with her body becomes extremely efficient, right? So there's that. So the not sleeping as a kind of crisis, but then also a kind of opportunity. But there's the repetition that it happened before, but it's not exactly the same. And the harder question here is our larger kind of thematic concern, which is how to read this in relation to sexual difference that we've been, pursuing. Sexual difference. What's sexual about this story? So, so the consequence of the sleeplessness, which she doesn't really call an insomnia because it's not that she's suffering from not sleeping, she's actually thriving. So some of the things that she says, very strangely, she says, her face becomes just a pure physical object. I don't know if you remember that. She says she's looking at herself in the mirror, and she thinks reality exists and I exist, and we just do it simultaneously. So in other words, there's a certain kind of almost necessary confusion we have, right? How can you actually separate yourself from your reality? To think that reality and I exist simultaneously, that's a very strange mode of being from our habitual experience of reality. But so in other words, there's a certain kind of separation that happens, and she feels great about that. And in one place, she says something about after that strange dream. You remember the whole sleeplessness begins with the strange dream, which she calls a trance. It's not really a dream because she really feels that old man was there. And then she says at the end of it, something inside herself died. And then when she goes to swim, with this ferocity that she never had before, she says something like she wanted to purge her body of something. So it's a certain kind of purification is happening. So there's a separation between reality and herself, whatever that means, and also purifying her body of whatever the contaminating elements that had been there. So and she says she wanted to break the connection between her mind and her body, and so everything, reality is just reality, housework just housework. So she kind of runs everything as if she were just a machine, and then her mind is disengaged from all that, all the activities, and she can just read and enjoy and eat chocolates and whatever. Yeah, I don't know how you felt about this vitality that comes with not sleeping.
I felt like her not sleeping was like apart from like this like spiritual awakening she has, I felt like I felt like it was her trying to shed the role of a mother that she has to play, because when she sleeps she like resets herself,
right,
to become functional again.
That's what she reads in
yeah. But then because now that she doesn't sleep, I feel like it's a quiet rebellion against like this forced like mechanical role that she has to play.
Right? Yeah. Yes, that would be very understandable, right? But then she says something strange, which is what? when she goes through this separation, she doesn't become less of a housewife. She becomes the most efficient housewife. So that's the irony.
And there is even a part when she analyzes her behavior and she says that after she stopped sleeping, her husband even started treating her somehow better. Like she felt even more natural, and
Yes.
people around her didn't suspect anything, and they were even like seemed happier with her attitude right now, which was very strange to me.
Yes.
To me, the thing that separates this from just like being a wife and a housewife is that later, when the more she started doing the things that she wants to do, she said how she was avoiding contact with people. Like she couldn't even interact with them to get like coffee or something. So I just thought that was like she was giving herself away for so many years. It was like piling up to please others. Like she was putting herself on the back burner to do things for her husband and her son, and like meet with her friends and engage in gossip and everything. And she lost herself. Like she stopped reading, and she said she stopped eating chocolates because her husband doesn't like it, or
Right.
then she does all of these other things that is adjusting to what other people like. And I feel like she forgot that that's what she used to, that's who she used to be. And then
Right.
she would get into it, like when she started reading and she saw the chocolate on the book, she was like, oh, this is what I used to do, this is how I used to be. So then she wanted to get herself back. And the more, to me, I didn't read it as like a rebellion, but she enjoyed it so much that she had this like accumulated debt. Like she wanted to spend time with herself, so she was just like, I'm going to get my chores over with. And she even called motherhood a chore in one sentence, and she just did it mechanically, and then she got back to herself because of years and years and years of not doing that.
Right.
That's how I interpreted
Yes.
it.
Yeah. So I mean, when there are moments, because her attitude toward this change also changes. So I will walk you through that soon. But at the beginning, it is not at all any kind of rebellion, although it looks like one, because consequentially, because she says, I am my own person, I want to rediscover what I used to enjoy. So in that context, one can read it as a kind of the consequence is a bit of rebellion, but there's no intention of rebelling against anything. It just so happened that it was kind of imposed. The chance was imposed on her to go back to what she used to enjoy. But what you were saying, I wanted to comment on. It slipped out of my mind.
What did I say? The chores? She called motherhood a chore?
Yes. So, okay. So the point of her kind of regaining some sort of a sense of self is not from having these ideas, that, oh, I am myself, it's over there. When she tries to articulate it, she ends up saying this thing, but that sounds rather banal, there's no such thing as, reality versus me. But what really happens is that this is where we see what she was trying to purge herself of, which is this strange mixture of, let's say, discourse of housewife, discourse of the family. So when she does her duties, which is, everybody has duties. The husband has to go look at these teeth all day. It's not so much better than having to run the vacuum cleaner. I don't think it's so much better, So everybody has a job to do, and nobody's job is pleasant all the time. But somehow we have this cultural discourse where being a housewife is somehow just worse than being something else. But then it is also each individual's choice whether to agree with that or not. But any kind of discourse has this force to kind of make you submit to it. It really presents itself as if it were the truth. And in a way, what she's purging herself of is precisely that discursive confusion. That's why when she separates herself, or when she removes that discursive confusion, she becomes an extremely efficient housewife and happy at the same time. Does that make sense? So before it was, Ivana, this is not a regular course. You're not gonna have an exam. So I don't know why you're writing so much. but I know that sometimes when you take notes, more ideas come to you. But yeah, just reminding me that there's no exam at the end of this. So that's how we can understand this mystery. It's not that she goes through this kind of revolutionary period and she thinks I'm done with being a housewife and walk out. No, she becomes the most efficient housewife, and it doesn't bother her at all. So do you see so there I think it's extremely smart in the sense that to make it into a kind of existential argument. A lot of us suffer from ideas about our reality rather than reality per se. I'm not saying that there's a clear demarcation between our ideas of reality and reality per se. I'm not saying that there's a clear line, but she actually tells us how one can do exactly the same things, live exactly the same life, and yet feel completely different about it. So that's, I thought, a very interesting textual point. And I don't know, do you find it convincing at all?
I just thought that the thing that stood out to me, she's so detached from her family.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like her husband. Like, she made that very clear. She, even when she looks at her son for a little bit, she is like, oh, I feel like what I don't like about him is that he looks like my husband, and that he's going to grow up and he's not going to understand me. And then even she mentions in one of the paragraphs that I started reading, but he didn't even notice.
Right.
He is not going to ask me about it. Whereas every time he would come home from lunch, he would talk about his dentist work and the devices, and so.
Right.
I think that also makes a big difference. Where if you are so like in love with somebody, or like at least like passionate about family, whereas she is just. It's like somebody doing a job they don't like because they get paid. That's the feeling that I got. Like, this is her family. I cook them lunch. I do whatever I need to do, but I don't really like them. I don't like spending time with them. I don't, and they don't seem to really know her. Even she said, when my son grows up, he's not going to understand me, because he's going to grow up like his father, meaning my husband doesn't understand me.
Right.
So you can't really have this kind of an emotional connection to somebody who doesn't understand you.
I mean, I agree with you, Magdalena, but I also would ask, what does it mean to understand someone? I mean, so it's not, maybe it's a matter of word choice.
Yeah.
I know what you're getting at, and I agree with you, but so I'm kind of just revising the words here.
Yeah, and I don't mean like understand, but so much as like know, like, oh,
Yeah.
these are her habits, this is
Yeah.
what, like, I notice these things about her.
Yes.
I feel like he doesn't pay attention to her even to notice, like, oh, you haven't slept in 17 days, or like, you look a little happier, just to notice these little changes in someone, like, oh, I saw you picked up reading, or something like that.
Yeah. So it's not that, I mean, we know that the husband is supposed to be, it's hard to find faults with him in a way. That's how the story begins, how she explains, like, actually I have a pretty good family. I love him. Maybe I don't really like him, but I love him, and he's a great husband, and he's obviously dedicated. He works hard, and he comes home. He's not interested in doing anything, outside the family. But then, of course, that's precisely a kind of problem.
Yeah.
When either the husband or the wife has no life beyond the family, you begin to worry. You see what I mean? Because then if you don't have a life outside, whatever it is, the family becomes very, very small, if that makes sense. The family is as alive as what you bring to it. But if all you have is the family, there's no fresh air, there's no fresh material. It just becomes stagnant, right? So there you kind of see that this husband is going to, you almost feel like you're looking at the past, although it sounds less interesting here than the mother in Lederhosen, how she ends up. So there's a kind of parallel between this younger housewife and the mother who just kind of flips. But I dare say the husband over there, I mean, in Lederhosen sounds more interesting than this dentist. Although people will find him to be a better husband, but then there's a husband is a husband, but also he's supposed to be a man.
Yeah, she says when she had the argument with her mother-in-law about the son's name, she says when he was like trying to balance between us, he didn't side with me. I stopped viewing him as my protector, and that's when I stopped watching him sleep.
Yeah.
When they were
Yes. I mean, I guess that's one of those classical, family, problems where the man doesn't know what to do between two women. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on the particular dynamic, but in a way, I don't know. What do you think he should have done?
sided with the wife.
I don't know, but if you have a brother, I don't know if you guys actually have a brother, but if you have a brother, and then your brother is married, and then they're in this situation with your own mother, would you be so ready to side with the brother and his wife?
I would just think he's his own individual self, and he lives with this woman. He chose her to spend his life with her. He's planning to grow old with her, so he should side with her. And even if he didn't agree with her, he should, prioritize her at the end of the day, because this is like his parents is one family, but then you grow up and you but you go out of that family and create your own family. And even for this, like now, I don't even know if his mother is still alive, but this is still causing problems in his marriage. So I feel like that should be a priority.
Yes.
Yeah, I would also agree with the statement, because I think there comes a point when you grow up and you move outside to make your own family, and you have to put work into your own family, because like your mother and your father, they also put work into their own families, so it should be like a healthy separation there.
Right. Yeah. So in other words, she's almost saying that was the moment when I felt, okay, he's my husband, but kind of not attractive.
She got the ick.
Yeah, she got the ick.
She got the what?
The ick.
Oh. Is this some kind of
Yeah, people say that when you're like dating somebody or going out with somebody, and then they do something and you're like, oh, that's an ick, and then you like go like that. Like people say like, oh, I was on a date with my boyfriend and I saw him like skip over like a puddle and I got the ick, and like I don't like it.
It's like about the smallest details.
Like you
that
can
make
explain,
but it's not a good thing.
Yeah,
it's like I'm not attracted to him anymore.
Yeah.
It's when you see some small detail and then you're like, oh, I don't like the whole person.
Oh, I see.
It's similar to Lederhosen's story, actually.
Okay.
Like you get grossed out in a way.
Yeah.
But you can't point to it.
Yeah. But you see, I mean, can we just kind of admit that? I'm going to say something dangerous. Ladies want men.
Yeah.
We don't want some. I mean, why can't we just admit that we want men to be different from women also? Because that's what the attraction is all about. If it's the same as me, if the person is the same as me, what's the point? I want to be with someone who's different from me, you know. And for the lack of a better word, we call that manliness, masculine, or whatever. But words are never good enough, right? So you can't just pick fights about words, because it's not like we can invent new words just like that. So we end up using the familiar words, but it doesn't mean we are, you know, not intelligent enough to know that these words are limited. You see what I mean? So I think that's where kind of some of us, at least, maybe not all women would agree with us, but some of us feel we are not served by this idea of, you know, we want nice guys. No, I want guys. Right? So and actually there are enough stories even by some female authors where you get that. I mean the classic being Pride and Prejudice. We all want Mr. Darcy. Let's just, you know, maybe not all. Okay, I shouldn't impose the idea, but it's a classic for a reason. So the point that I want to make is this kind of growing separation from her family, almost hate for her husband and her son. That actually is not there from the beginning. This is what I mean by kind of the sleeplessness, kind of going through some phases. At first, it was a total revelation of her body, how her body is so alive and she feels young and beautiful, you know. And that's when she says, intensely real feeling of being alive on page 100. This is her kind of summary of that first phase, when she's completely alive, her body is alive, and her reading, you know, intense concentration. You know, she can just read for hours. And then that phase ends with, or at least punctuated with this event of, I mean, this is where, sorry, I sound like someone who teaches Freud here, but it ends with her encounter with the policeman. So if you go to page 101, the bottom of the page, do you have the same page numbers as we do? 101, the bottom, yes, exactly. It says, so she would sometimes go out to drive around, and she can sleep. She doesn't want to sleep. She feels completely awake. But one time, she says, I was questioned by a policeman. It was 2:30 in the morning, and I was parked under a street lamp near the pier, listening to the car stereo, watching the lights of the ships passing by. He knocked on my window. I lowered the glass, and she says, what? He was young and handsome and very polite. Yes, of course, this is just a passing remark. He's young and handsome, but it's the first time where she is shown to be interacting with the other sex. I mean, yes, there was the old man in her trance, but his status is very strange. It's murky. We do not know. That's why it's so disconcerting to her. But here, she actually objectifies, as ladies love to say, objectifies the man as
handsome.
Yes, you know, someone to enjoy, someone who pleases her, right? So in a way, that whole vitality comes to this kind of awakening to the other sex, you know, which had kind of been forgotten. Right, because her husband was just a husband, and then now she is here, a woman talking to a handsome man. So it kind of gives us this idea that this whole idea of the body coming back to life is we see the proof here. She is a sexual being. Is this pushing too much?
No, I thought the same thing, because even, I don't know if that's before or after this, but when her husband says like, oh, I don't have to go back for a while, she's like, oh, I know he wants to have sex and I don't want to, so I
Right.
fake a headache. But then I feel like she didn't, like, she kept moving, she was going out, like she was exercising a
Right.
lot and engaging with her body in different ways, like eating chocolates and all of these things, but because she didn't want to engage in sex with him
Right.
particularly. But I
Right.
feel like if she had an opportunity with somebody else, she does.
Yeah. So it's like at first she like, no, I have a headache, because she now sees that sex for her wasn't for her pleasure. So she rejects it. But then soon after, she has sex with him the way she does her housework. It's a passing remark, but she says, I did all the things very efficiently. I went through the motions: shopping, cooking. This is page 95 to 6. Playing with my son, having sex with my husband. So it was easy once I got the hang of it. All I had to do was break the connection between my mind and my body. In other words, she said kind of, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So in other words, sex here is not sex. It's just to do her duty. But when she, so there, sex kind of emptied of the erotic kind of dimension of it, right?
Yeah, so like her interaction with the police officer is more sexual than even her having sex with her husband.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. How did you feel about
I agree. Just because it really struck, like I was shocked because I, like, young and handsome, but then she described the husband as like ugly and blah. And
Right.
then, like, suddenly this.
Yes.
It's very striking.
Yes. It's very obvious, right?
Yeah, but what was interesting to me was that after meeting the policeman, she kind of, I wouldn't say she got insane, but she started spiraling more and more on this topic of life and death. And in the end, we could see her dressing up as a man and going out to the place where the couple was attacked.
Yeah.
So I think that her realization of policemen's like attractiveness and maybe sexuality also prompted something else inside of her that
Very
we can
good.
see like unroll in the later parts.
Yes, I like that. Any comments, Magdalena?
I mean, I definitely noticed that, but I wanted to discuss it further. I wasn't sure what to make of it.
Okay. So this is so the phase 2. This is what I mean. So the phase 1 is now, although it was just her being alive with her body, we don't really know the kind of sexual significance until the moment. And then from that, so in other words, she's now once again a sexual person. And from there, what happens is not that, she would develop that aspect. She wants to actually engage the pleasure. What she does is she begins to hate her family, like very ferociously. Before it was just kind of like disengaged, but now she actively thinks about. This is actually where she talks about also the memory of the mother-in-law, the name of the child. She begins to dig out all the unpleasant, history with her husband and her family, and then to the point where, not only that she's looking at her husband and she thinks this is an ugly man, And then even the son, he looks just like his father, and I know I will come to despise him.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that she described her husband was so. I mean, I was so disgusted reading it. It was very, very, just like, she really like. You can't talk that way about somebody unless you like really dislike them actively.
Yeah.
But, what I thought was interesting is at the top of page 105 when she says, I looked at my son's face again, and then it hit me exactly like my husband, like my mother-in-law, stubborn, self-satisfied. It was in their blood, the kind of arrogance I hated in my husband's family. I feel like all of those things are coming up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you make of this going from her kind of second sexual awakening to this hatred for her family? What do you make of that? Maybe there's nothing to make of it. I don't know.
Maybe after the encounter with the policeman, like that like awakened in her, and she didn't consider it before. But now that she would come home, compared to that, she would feel so disgusted towards her husband, and that disgust would, then like rub off on her son too, because, and it wasn't anything the son did, it's just that he looked like the husband. So I thought that before she kind of again forgot what it was like, but then the second that it kind of reminded her, like it came back into her life, she was like, well, this is like, it made her senses more aware, like maybe she forgot how to think that way. And the second that she saw like when you eat something really disgusting like food all your life, and then you have a really good meal, you go back to eating and you're like, this is even more disgusting than I thought it was, because now I've had something delicious. So
Yeah.
I would agree that there was this very like strong emotion inside of her, and also it's very visual, the way she hates her husband is mostly about his appearance, how ugly he is, because she keeps saying that he is a nice person, that he's sweet to her. So on like feelings type of side, it's not that bad, but visually, compared to like the police officer, that's where the ugliness comes, because she really unlocks it when she starts to look at him sleeping again. After the talk with the policeman, she comes back and she looks at him sleeping, and it's when it hits her how disgusting he is to her.
Yeah, but doesn't she also say like, I don't like that he is so like, she didn't use the word perfect, but like he has no flaws, and that makes him even more like
absence
shallow.
of faults. 105.
Absence of faults. So I thought that's also, I mean, more about his personality than just his looks, because his looks are full of faults according to her. But his absence of faults, and I mean, unrelated, but in the story to Room 19, I really like this entire brochure reminded me of
this
that.
This is about Doris Lessing. They read a story,
And because like I feel like it repeated the fact that when something is perfect, it's less, I don't know, like people feel less passionate about it, because I feel like if he had flaws, it would be something more to love. But when it's so perfect, it's shallow, easy to love. So it's too simple.
How does that sound to you? Does it remind you of anything from our last discussion? Faults. I mean, of course, I completely understand what you're saying, Magdalena. Once again, it's easier to love someone when the person has faults. But then we want to let's say it a little more theoretically here. Faults. So in a sense, she's almost saying that, okay, he doesn't drink. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't even want to eat out because of the people smoking, smoke gets in his clothes. So the point that we were talking about last time, eroticism, how it has something to do with passivity. So when you like drinking, for instance, I don't know if you guys like drinking. there's a certain surrender to it. You can't help it. You have to have that, glass of whatever, it's in that relenting to that seduction of the thing as well as of a person, where you actually experience your passivity, and passivity is an essential ingredient of any kind of erotic experience. Because you can't be erotic when you are all full of your own agency and autonomy, independence. It's that giving yourself away, surrendering. There we find something like eroticism, right? So in other words, I'm gonna put it more simply. She's almost saying that he's not sexy. Faults, of course it can be, personality faults, but I don't think she's simply saying that,
Yeah, I think what's not attractive about him is he's so sensitive to all of these things. Like he's sensitive to the smell of cigarettes. He doesn't like alcohol, and even she liked chocolates, but he was like, oh, don't. So now they don't have it in the house anymore because I don't know, but it's like weak. But she was saying she wanted him to protect her, even with the argument with the mother-in-law. Yeah. So I think that he was just like, he's so picky, like nitpicky about so many things. That it's like, is there something that doesn't bother you? Like,
Yeah, and even with alcohol, because she loved to drink actually.
Now she's drinking again.
Yeah, now she's drinking again. She's come to surrender herself again to that like drinking habit. And you can kind of see how when she first doesn't sleep, she tries to limit herself to only one glass, but then she keeps reading the book and she like lets herself go and she pours another glass. And like this habit of her returns, which is very contrasted with the husband who just hates a lot of the simple human things.
Yes. So we see a definite kind of a gap between what we call a good husband and a man that a woman can take as her lover. You see what I mean? But the thing is, instead of exploring this newfound desire for erotic love, let's say, she channels all her energy towards hating these two men in her life. and she begins to have all these bad memories, and she gets more and more resentful. In other words, something fails to work in that transition. She could have gone elsewhere with that desire, but she kind of relapses into this kind of discursive mood. Discourse of my husband not good enough, because she almost doesn't seem to understand what we understand about her. Do you see what I'm trying to say? She doesn't understand that this fresh kind of encounter with the policeman is just she doesn't think she doesn't have the capacity to interpret the situation. I don't know, Ivana, do you wanna?
Well, actually, initially I didn't think that I thought that because she had this like evolutionary leap, as she said it, I thought like
Evolutionary leap. Yeah.
She saw herself in a, I think, like higher intellectual place compared to the husband and the son. But now I'm starting to sympathize with her.
I see. I mean, because in a way, she kind of goes between, as you're saying, like she wants to kind of do research on this, so something intellectual, or the regular kind of discourse of the family that she now dislikes so much, which means she loses the body aspect that started the whole thing at the beginning. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So she kind of loses the body and goes to intellectual or cultural discourses So the body disappears. And then that's really the beginning of sleep coming back. So, so she says, because you see, when your body is alive, often what happens is that you only live in this moment. You don't think about the past or future. So when she, at the beginning, when her body is so alive, it's all about just doing what she needs to do, and then going back to her reading, going out to swim. The body is there in that moment. And then after this transition, where the discourses are coming back, she thinks about,
So she remembers her
boyfriend.
High school boyfriend.
Yes. So the boyfriend is, it's college freshman.
Oh, yeah, college
yes.
freshman.
So on 107. So the first memory was, of course, the dispute with the mother-in-law. That's the first memory. And then now we have another memory. So in other words, the fact that her body is kind of disappearing again coincides with the fact that her mind is now engaged with memory rather than the present moment. So she says, when all of a sudden I remember a drive I took with my boyfriend the year I was a college freshman. We parked and got into some heavy petting. He couldn't stop, he said, and he begged me to let him put it in, but I refused. Hands on the steering wheel, listening to the music, I tried to bring back the scene, but I can't recall his face, which actually she had the same problem with her husband earlier, like she couldn't remember because it's such a strange face, as she says. This is even before. Right. So, in a way, the body that has awakened like this somehow cannot find its way to sexual love, eroticism. This is really a kind of tragedy that repeats itself in many of Murakami's stories, where women, female characters, either younger or older, they somehow do not know how to live that live that dimension of the body, the erotic body, the body that desires. So the body is awake enough to do all the things, do all the house chores and swim and all that, but it doesn't find its way to erotic love. And in a way, remembering the boyfriend who she refused is kind of the proof of that, once again, that kind of I can't do it. My body doesn't know how to do that. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I think definitely. I noticed even in the other stories, like women usually can they don't. It's not as sexual. Like he tries to, like we mentioned last time, like he tries to make it. Even in the first story, the woman try to make her sexual, but she doesn't sound like it. Really sounds just
Exactly.
unattractive.
The one on the phone.
Yeah, the on Tuesday's woman.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
So when she tries to be erotic, she ends up just producing words, which sounds so literal and as such not at all erotic, and he doesn't get aroused at all. Right? So so this is actually given as so with the sleeplessness, she actually was given a fresh chance to redo the erotic life, which it seems like in hindsight we see that she kind of didn't learn that. So the example of the boyfriend, her rejecting him, there's no sense of her enjoyment there. It's not the question of whether she rejected him or not. That's secondary. They could well have had actual sex, but she could still have had the same result, which is not enjoying. So it's not the refusal that matters here, it's that there's no feeling here that she enjoyed any part of it, right? So now so that's back when she had the insomnia again. So it's almost like maybe after that discovery of not being able to enjoy, she had the insomnia. It's possible. There's this kind of connection, logical connection. Like sleeping is almost like the body that doesn't know how to enjoy itself. So that happened in college. And then now we have her, with a fresh chance, her body is coming back and she's so excited. And yet once again, she cannot take it to that dimension. So it ends with this dark, like Sophia, you were saying, she's thinking about death, and is death kind of like this sleepless darkness, So we don't have any of the early, the vitality of the body anymore. It's all gone. And then we have this strange scene where two men appear. So now, how are we going to read this ending?
For me, it was kind of hard to really understand the man. The man in her dream that came and poured water onto her legs after that she stopped sleeping. That was like the first very murky type of person that I couldn't really decipher. And I think the men at the end are something akin to that man in her sleep, because I don't feel like they're real people. I think it's more of like this, maybe also another trance that she is feeling, because she says that she's changing once again, and in the dream with an old man she was also changing, so there's like this repetitiveness happening.
Right. Yeah. I think it's very probable that she's fallen asleep. So this is either her dream or a trance. Either way, she's in this. She's no longer awake. Because she says what on page 108, so right before the last page. I'm changing though, really changing. You almost see the person falling asleep. She says, how long have I been sitting here? You see, her consciousness is slipping away. So I think it's very easy to think of what follows there as a part of her sleep. But the sleep, I want to go back to the old man, because her friend had the same kind of dream. Remember, her friend had a trance, and there too, the figure that appeared was another, again, old man who she thought maybe her husband's
vengeful ghost or something.
Yes, but it wasn't. But so we will talk about that soon enough. But here, what do you make of this then? If we were to think that this is her dream or trance, what are we going to make of the fact that it's these two men, rocking her car in this violent way?
I'm reading it now. I thought it sounded kind of sexual, especially when she is saying like, my mind is crammed full of thick darkness. It's not taking me anywhere. My hands are shaking. I try pulling out the key and putting it back in, but my hands are shaking, and like, but my shaking hand can't find a hole. I try again, drop the key, curl over, try to pick it up. All of those things kind of, I feel like her body is trying to find that like erotic, but she is panicking through it, I guess, or unable to.
Yeah. Other ideas?
Interesting that she ends up feeling trapped inside the vehicle that was supposed to be like her like object for freedom, like to
Yes.
freedom.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, how to say this without scandalizing too much? Because you gave me a new idea. I didn't come with this idea, but I think, I mean, on the one hand, of course, we have a definite kind of a regular discourse. She says, locked inside this little box, I can't go anywhere. This is one of the last things she says. It's the regular story of the housewife once again. You know, I'm just stuck in my family, I can't go anywhere. So on the one hand, she's just back to the regular place where people just think that being a housewife is a terrible thing. But then it ends with the men keep rocking the car back and forth that they're going to turn it over. There is this, of course, fear, anxiety of being kind of violated in some sense, but there's always a wish on the other side of this kind of fear, especially in a dream. I mean, you're learning about dreams, right? So in a way, this is her struggling with her own desire, and somehow her desire cannot take the more, I don't know, more loving kind of a path. It's this kind of fantasy of violent men. So there is the ambiguity, kind of dangerous ambiguity, right?
I just think if it had ended with locked inside this little box, it can't go anywhere, that would be like the end of it. But these extra 3 sentences have some additional meaning that make it go beyond just that.
Yes, yes. So if you want to push along this line of thinking, you can go look up Slavoj Žižek talking about a scene from Wild. It's one of David Lynch's movies, Wild at Heart, something like that. There's a scene, Laura Dern being aroused by this man in a menacing way, and it turns out that he was just playing her. He didn't mean to really violate her, but then she actually gives herself to that fantasy of being violated. So it's an excruciating kind of scene, but Zizek does a great job of reading that ambiguity that we are kind of approaching here. So you can, I think it's available on the internet if you look it up. Okay, so then going back to the old man, because she had the dream, but it turns out that her friend had the same dream. So why this old man? How is this old man, the figure of the old man, different from all these other men that appear, especially the 2 faceless men who appear at the end? It's difficult, isn't it? Why this old man? I think this is where, I don't know, do you want to say something?
I would say that probably the old man really stood out among all of the men because of his age is one thing, because I think like the men at the end who were rocking the car, they seemed like around her age group, this like category, and because he was an old man, he was so also like outside of her everyday usual reality, because like older women are mentioned in the text, for example the mother-in-law, but this man is the only older man in like the whole story. And also he was the one who in a sense, gave her, this second chance at like reliving
Right.
herself and like reawakening her like bodily feelings.
Right.
So I don't really feel him as a negative character per se. I actually think he was, granting her a chance, prompting her for this quite literal awakening.
Right. So it's hard to think of that old man as a bad. His function is at least not a bad. It's not negative. He looks bad, and yet he has a function that is actually for her benefit.
To me, instead of his age, what I really focused on was he was pouring water on her feet, and I had no idea what that could mean, but I was like, it has to have some meaning because that's like a very specific thing to be doing.
Right.
So I wanted to see what other people thought.
At first I thought, because there's this like ancient Chinese torture method where they're like slowly pour like water on the person. It was the Wikipedia says it's like a psychological torture because like you keep anticipating like water, but then I don't think, because at first I thought he was bad, but then but then in the end it was like for her own, like he worked for her own good. So
Yeah, I really have no answer, and I don't know what the symbolism may be for the pouring water. But one thing I can hazard, an idea that I can kind of, in a way, this is where if you know something of psychoanalysis, it helps a little bit. In a way, it's like the father, function of the father. There's something very ambiguous about that. And in our, when we dream, of course, any dream would be made up of course, your unconscious material, as we say, but also it has the dressing that comes from our waking life, which means all the discourse that we take for granted enters to make the dream legible. It turns into a story. So the fact that he looks like a villain is kind of the discursive part of what the father is supposed to be. But then the function is to kind of awaken her to something that she has forgotten. So I think the old man represents that ambiguity of the father for the young woman, if that makes sense. Kind of, speaking of Pride and Prejudice and Mr. Darcy, remember Elizabeth, the woman who marries Darcy, is her father's favorite. And they share this rapport that the prettiest Jane doesn't have, the oldest daughter, she doesn't have that relationship with her father. So there's something about the father as kind of a necessary agent in the girl's, sexual awakening, sexual curiosity, or attitude towards men, something that you carry from your relationship with your father. I mean, I don't mean that it has to be your own father per se, but there's something about, because he, just like the friend says, I thought it was my father-in-law, the dead father-in-law. So something about, it's that father figure, right? So perhaps that's one way of reading it. In psychoanalysis, we do say a great deal about the father, and there's an aspect of that, how, in a way, without going into all the theory of the Oedipus complex and all that, but you know there's certain connections there, yeah. Okay, so any further thoughts that you want to add before we move on to the second story?
Another thing that I wanted to point out, I wasn't sure if there was anything there, but when she talks about her mother and she says something like, I know what my mother would have said at this.
Right.
And then she says, I'm sure she would say something like that, but I'm just as sure she would be wrong. He had grown ugly over the years. So she was so sure that when the way that she remembered him was like accurate, and he was not ugly when she first, but this was something over time. And I just was, I thought that kind of stood out. Like I thought that was interesting. That, I mean, I would assume that her mother telling her that, I would think, oh yeah, my mother was right. Every marriage ends up like this.
Yes.
Well, I didn't know because I was in love or something. But no, she says, I was sure he had grown ugly over the years. So.
Yeah, I mean, in our class, we talked about how women relate to their mothers, you know, and this is why the next story is so striking, because in the next story, Lederhosen, how the daughter relates to her mother is so different from what we often see. This, you know, daughters always having this kind of basic I don't know, what would you say? How do women often, in the stories that we read, for instance, in our class, women often dismiss their mothers. And even Elizabeth Bennet. It is true, you know, where she really thinks that her mother is, lacking in manners, and which is also true. But here, the mother actually does nothing to inspire. In this small quote, you know, what page was that?
104.
104. In this very small quote, you see, all that lovey-dovey stuff lasts 2 years, 3 years tops. She does nothing to inspire love and there's no understanding, no knowledge of how a woman may actually love and desire.
It was just so, like she says, he'd get even uglier in the years ahead, that much was certain, and I had no choice but to go along with it, put up with it, resign myself to it. I let out a sigh, I just stood there watching him. Like, it was just so... I don't know, depressing. Just...
Yes.
Yeah, that's why for me it left a very sad impression, you know, because towards the end you can kind of see her, I would say, not learning her lesson about her sexuality, like her sexual engagement, and I would believe that after her dream at the end she would probably return to a similar cycle because she didn't truly change.
Right.
So it was kind of very sad reading about how much she was, you know, how much daunting her relationship with her husband was, and to think that she would probably still stay with him. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. We don't get, I mean, although we do not know what's going to happen to her, we don't feel like she's going to. Yeah.
I don't feel like she's going out with anyone interesting or exciting for her.
Right. Yeah.
But she also says so much about her husband, like good things, that I feel like she's saying it like she's convincing herself. Like she says, my husband is good to me. He is sweet and gentle, and he's careful to take care of my feelings. Like and she said that many times. Like, but my husband is good. Like she says the most vile things about him, and then she ends with, but my husband is good to me. So.
I feel like she's trying to, you know, comfort herself a little bit, to not feel so, you know, disgusted with him. She tries to highlight these little things that are good,
Yeah.
his personality.
I mean, because as we said, according to the general kind of cultural discursive ideas about husbands, she cannot dispute that he's a good husband. So this is the difficulty. Okay, I get it, but why is it that I'm not happy with this guy? Why does he look so ugly to me? So I like this. Of course, some people would say that, oh, this is Murakami. He's a male author, so he thinks that women would do what men do all the time, which is men objectify women, and women are really not like this. I don't know.
I thought this was pretty accurate.
Nobody wants to be with someone that they find unattractive. This has nothing to do with is a person handsome. It's not that. It's that something that makes the person attractive, and she's now realizing that he doesn't have it for her. Okay. Okay, so then Lederhosen, so it's almost like this wife goes back home and she stays with her husband, but then the dentist husband is not interesting. At least the husband here in Lederhosen, his problem is that he's a womanizer, right? A skirt chaser. This is the problem. But then in the end, she kind of revolts, right? So what was interesting about this story?
For me, what was really interesting is probably the behavior of mother towards her daughter. Because usually in real life, when you see situations where a mother and father get divorced, usually children stay with their mothers. Right. They stay kind of glued to them, and it's the father figure who's kind of living the situation. But in Lederhosen, it was kind of a reverse situation, where mother just suddenly not only dumped her husband, but also her own daughter, and they didn't speak for like 3 years, I think. And that's when they came into contact, and that was really shocking to me in a sense, because it was a different picture from what you usually meet in life and in literature.
I feel like I kind of related it to the first story where she disliked the son because relation to the father. I feel like if she had brought the daughter with her or something, she still has a reminder of the husband that she wanted to get away from. So I feel like her leaving the entire family behind, she could be herself. Whereas if the daughter was with her, or even in any sort of contact, she still has a connection to the husband.
Right.
I like how both stories, the mother find themselves through alienation. Both of them alienate themselves to discover, or they come to a realization because of that.
Right.
Alienation.
Yeah. So the story, textually speaking, is very interesting, because what happens in Germany, that we'll go to that scene, because it's like a moment of what's that word? Not illumination, epiphany. All these kind of vague discontents of her life suddenly come together to become this substance, which is her hatred for her husband. So there's that. That's really the narrative climax, as I said, the climax of the story. But the climax of the text is different. That involves the frame, how the friend is talking with the narrator, who's a man, which is, of course, extremely interesting. And they almost have a secret conversation away from the wife. So there we have to, so those are two levels that we have to remember. So let's go to first the narrative climax, where out of the blue, so on 128, so it's the second last page. So she's a very able person, right? She's an English teacher, and she wants this adventure, and she manages to communicate in this foreign country, but she also manages to persuade the tailors to do this unusual thing, and her inventiveness is very remarkable. I'm gonna grab somebody who's the same size as my husband, and then you're gonna make one, a pair for him. So she's towards the bottom of the first section. That's something. So she only those three German men, ha-ha-haing like bellows. That's when she decided to divorce her husband. And then that's when our narrator asks, so what made your mother do it? That's something even mother herself didn't understand at the time. It made her defensive and confused. All she knew was, looking at that man in the Lederhosen, she felt an unbearable disgust rising in her, directed toward father. And she could not hold it back. Mother's Lederhosen man, apart from the color of his skin, was exactly like father. The shape of the legs, the belly, the thinning hair, the way he was so happy trying on those new Lederhosen, all prancy and cocky like a little boy. As mother stood there looking at this man, so many things she had been uncertain of about herself slowly shifted together into something very clear. That's when she realized that she hated father. This is, of course, very striking. What do you find striking?
I think similar to the previous story, there is this, kind of a visual awakening happening once again that serves as an instantaneous trigger of this hatred. Because in the previous story she saw a handsome policeman, and then she kind of compared her husband. But here it seems like she is physically away from her husband, and she can finally see him as a person. She finally sees what he looks like, and she's disgusted by that. But what was interesting to me is that it's not so about his looks, but it's about what she was uncertain with herself.
Exactly.
That she realized, and then it kind of projected onto her husband.
Yeah. So she's actually, yes, she discovers her hatred for her husband, but what she also discovers at the same time is her definition of herself. Her definition of herself is the fact that she hates her husband. That's very sad. That's very sad. But also interesting is that she's thinking these three German men and her husband, she doesn't see any difference. They're all the same. And they're all acting like what? A little boy, which means for her, the cultural, racial differences don't matter. Age difference, because a little boy or old man, that difference doesn't matter. So in other words, she's basically hating not just her husband.
Hating all of the men.
She hates whatever it is that makes men. It's extremely sad. So she decides that she hates men. The definition of herself is the fact that she hates men. And what she hates about men, if we were to specify it, then the text says it. that they are like a little boy.
Yeah.
Prancy and cocky. They're so, it's not even your own Lederhosen, and then you're like happy because you're putting on. And this strange kind of narcissism, this self-sufficiency. This, of course, reminds us of, if you remember the last lawn of the afternoon, remember where the lawn mowing story?
Yeah.
Where, in the end, I talk about this in the previous project, you know, in the end, what the girl, because she writes him a letter saying that I want to break up with you. And then her reasoning is really strange. There too, kind of like the wife in the previous story, she says, you're a good guy. I think you're great, but I cannot imagine what, this is not going to be completely accurate, but something like what I can give you, what you can want from me. And so one way of reading it is like, I'm not good enough for you, but I don't think that's what she's saying. She's actually saying, you are too self-sufficient, you don't need anything. So it's kind of like what this mother is saying. These men, they don't seem to need anything. But of course, it's not that they, in their whole existence, they don't need anything. But somehow they have these moments when they can just completely be present. How does it sound? Of course, I exaggerate a little bit. But
It sounds good because with this three German men, you know, she kind of drags this like third man into the shop so suddenly, and it's kind of a sudden situation, but you can see that they're very fastly getting accustomed to it, and they're like laughing about it, and I don't think they're paying any attention to her specifically, because she was the one who dragged the man, but now he's all so happy and cocky about his Lederhosen, and I think that's what makes her so shocked. Like, she sees that they don't need her, they're not looking at her in any way.
Right. It seems like they've completely forgotten the context.
Yeah.
I feel like this, like, old prancy and cocky like a little boy, I feel like for women, what I've noticed throughout like other stories too is it's there's not a lot of moments where they get to be kids, where they get to be little girls. Like when like women get married, okay, you're a wife, you're a mother, you always have somebody to take care of, you have something to do. And then even when I see like women enjoying themselves, it's like, even in the past, you're like, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna read with like a glass of alcohol or what was it, whiskey or something. But then I feel like even in the real world, when men want to relax or do something they enjoy, it's always these like childish things, like whether it's just like playing like a little kid, whereas I didn't really notice women having that as much. And I feel like that is typically what brings up disgust in them when they see like, oh, you've just abandoned this role of being like a man in a way, and you're like a little kid playing again. Whereas that, I feel like that is something unrelatable to women, which is why they feel that like difference, and that's what
I mean, this is where Freud would scandalously say penis envy. It doesn't mean that you actually want the organ. It's what that organ enables men to do, which is to kind of somehow having that organ, they actually forget about themselves. It's as if the organ is for remembering for them. They don't have that is related to the story, the last lawn, where he's all enjoyment, doing this hard physical work, and then in between he gets aroused for no reason. So there, so this is resentment. Of course, resentment is always the other side of envy. You know, you kind of. But it's my point, of course, is that the women who are actually resentful about that, they do not really. They kind of they sell themselves short. I would say they do not know what else they have, they themselves. And this is what we see in this character, the friend. What kind of woman is she? The daughter.
Actually, for me, like when cause she's like telling the narrator what happened, but then like when she said like all prancy and cocky like a little boy, to me I don't think the mother, she may have said that, but I don't think it could have been like at verbatim. It sounds almost as if like she's trying to like reconstruct the mother's memory like to fit her own like narrative, to make sense of the current situation that she's in, like why the mother like left her for like 3 years.
I mean, that is possible if she used her own words. Then we would have to think about whether she is presented as a character who could say such a thing. Is this in her character? This is what we need to figure out. Because she's supposed to be what? What are some of the distinguishing features of this character, the friend?
The daughter of the
Yeah.
mother. I mean, they say like, oh, she's a large woman, she's not like aggressive, she's rather retiring, she'd never dream of putting emotional pressure on anyone.
Right.
But she's
But she's also beautiful,
Yes.
according to the. So in other words, he's trying to describe this woman who's, by our regular standard, kind of unusual. So, in terms of her physique, she's very physical. She likes to do all kinds of sports. She's good at them. It's almost like a addictive kind of thing. She does this. At the same time, she would never dream of putting emotional pressure on anyone, which is very different from, let's say, the wife in the Tuesday's Women story. She's all about putting pressure, right? But this woman, and then she's unmarried, and she's had affairs. The woman may be a little on the large side, but she's beautiful. She's been proposed to, even agreed to take the plunge. But inevitably, whenever it's gotten to the wedding stage, some problem was caught up. Has come up, and everything falls through. And then what does the wife say? The friend. She's just unlucky. Come on. I mean, that's just so. I don't think she's a real friend, you know. Anyways, so in other words, she doesn't see this wonderful person that her friend is, as opposed to her husband who can see it.
Yeah.
So the husband, his reaction is, oh well, I guess I sympathize, but he adds his own thoughts. I'm not in total agreement with my wife on this. And his idea is that, a few lines down, he says, no, her heart was never set on marrying, is how I see it. Marriage just doesn't fall within the sweep of her comment, at least not entirely. So this is his understanding, which is so much more, and of course we get this character through his perspective, so yes, but it's much more generous, much more full of admiration for the lady. And then if that sounds like, you know, his own prejudice, but we get some direct quotes from her, and her direct quotes, most kind of revealing quote is, there are a few. First, on page 123, talking about her own father, she says what? Not a bad man, a hard worker, but kind of a skirt chaser. She tosses off matter-of-factly. No relation of hers, the way she's talking. For a second, I almost think her father is deceased, But no, I'm told she in other words, she has no discursive baggage about, because it's my father, I need to, portray him in a particular way, either with resentment or love. It's all kind of neutral. It doesn't concern her more than it does. You see what I'm saying? There's no this performative aspect where she wants to add stuff or subtract stuff. She's that kind of person. So you just get her personality as this kind of very refreshing. So this is how we know that the narrator's assessment of her character is pretty reliable. And another thing, we talked about last time how the female characters seem to use language which is very rational, and that is really their trap, because they emphasize how rational they are, and then they end up having these explosions of irrationality. So this woman is not a rational talker. So she says before, as she begins the story of her mother, she says what on the previous page 122? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm always telling things out of order. Stop me if things don't make sense. You see, her approach to language or narrative is not, there's no agenda there. There's a story that she wants to tell, but because she doesn't have an agenda, things come out of order. And of course, she says about her mother, because the parents stayed together through all these affairs of her father's. What does she say about her mother? Watching her mother being patient, and this is not a direct quotation, but it's on 123. In fact, she sometimes wondered if the woman, meaning her mother, had no imagination, meaning to stay with a man that she felt like, was doing her wrong all the time, and she would just stay with him. And as a daughter, she just said, my mother has no imagination. It's a very, so that's the kind of character she is. How are we doing with the battery?
33 minutes.
Oh, okay, so I think we'll be able to finish. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so
I think for this female character, I liked her best out of everyone. I really liked that. I mean, I liked the way that she was able to speak about her father completely kind of separated from the story, and also relate. I mean, I understand her mother and not hold anything against her when he asked, oh, don't you hate your mother anymore? And she just says, like, not really. And what stood out to me when she says, because she told you about the Lederhosen, and she says, I think so. After she explained things to me, I couldn't go on hating her. And she says, I certainly don't know how to explain it, but it may have something to do with us being women. Yes. And that kind of, I feel like, ties in the full story of just, even the previous one, like, it's just like this experience that you can't fully explain with words, but you just, like, you feel it and you know exactly how it would feel for somebody to just get the ick, like, immediately just, like, finally, like, go over the kind of this line that they've been trying to hold and make sure that, like, okay, this doesn't matter. And, like, because I feel like a lot of the things that women want in a man is something unexplainable. Like, you just have to have it. Even in the book Beauty of the Husband, the man is just like, it's nothing special about him, but he has, I mean, physically, or like his behavior, it's just like he has this thing. And if a man doesn't have it, I feel like women feel this pressure that but he's good to me, so I should deal with it. But he's good to me, so I will just accept it until they're finally like, I can't go on pretending that I find this attractive or that I enjoy spending time with this man or that I'm okay with these things. And then it just like,
Yeah, so the beauty of the husband, you remember, it's Anne Carson's book that we have discussed in another class, but yes.
I actually liked her character also quite a lot because I think she is it's a nice contrast with a lot of women we met before in the stories, and the fact that she's unmarried is, I think, a very beautiful side about herself, because we've seen a lot of women being married and being unhappy and hating their husbands. So I think she's much more healthier in a sense. She has affairs, she had lovers, and opposite to her mother, she doesn't seem to hate men.
Right.
She's in a very balanced relationship with them. Even towards her father, we can see kind of that line of thought that men are just, well, human beings, and she just comments on her dad being a skirt chaser as just, a part of his, character.
Yes.
She doesn't give a positive or negative feedback on that. And I think she is a very balanced character in that sense, especially compared to the woman from the previous story who was very, who grew up to be very resentful of her own family.
I also like this character, this woman a lot, because I think from the start I really liked her because she spoke really carelessly. She wasn't like the woman in the Wind Up Bird. Yeah,
and the Tuesday's wife, yes.
It's just, I think it was really refreshing. Also, she also didn't have too negative of a opinion about her father, even though he was a skirt chaser, as mentioned earlier. And I guess there's something really liberating, very freeing about the way she speaks. It makes her really attractive.
Yes, she's a very attractive person, and in a way the text makes it clear that in a way this body alive is kind of a condition. And we see that with male characters too, so that's why the lawn mowing guy, the body, doing the labor, and he's fully alive. There's something about the body being, it goes against our regular discourse. We tend to put down the body unless it's about fitness, unless it's something to manage. They don't think about the body as this is senses, the body that senses, the body that feels, the body that is passive, that the body that doesn't want to do anything. All these different aspects of the body. To feel the body as it is the condition of knowing something of, the erotic desire, because the body makes us actually never triumph, because the body is the blind spot of our existence, right? You know what I mean? Nobody can be, this is why, great old leaders these days are talking about immortality, because they want to somehow get rid of that final problem, and then they can just stay in power forever. Anyways, so that's the connection. When the wife in sleep, her body comes alive, but she doesn't know how to connect it to the erotic body, right? But this woman is obviously erotically fully alive, so she has affairs. She doesn't just do exercise. It's not exercise. These are actually activities that she likes. And on the other hand, she carries on with love affairs, and she can actually, sit down with her friend's husband and actually tell a story so genuinely, so with no agenda, so the narrative climax, as I said, was the mother arriving at the conclusion. But what's sad about this mother is, of course, we can very easily think of this decision as her final liberation. Yeah, we can do that, but don't you feel a bit sad?
Yeah, because I feel like she realized it so late. She spent her life like hating it. I mean, not subconsciously at least, disliking this man or trying to move on from the affairs and just keep the family together. And then, I don't know. I feel like if she had realized it a little bit earlier, it wouldn't have been as sad.
Who knows? I mean, the other woman realized she's 30 and she realized it in sleep.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't make anything of it, so we do not know. But the only thing that we can say is that this mother, it's likely, although we don't know, she may die without ever having loved a man. That's what makes me sad.
Yeah.
So her definition of herself is that she hates men, and who knows. That's what's kind of sad. But then the textual climax, as I said, is what Magdalena you just read, where the husband and the husband goes back to the story when the wife steps out. There's this kind of some kind of rapport there. He knows that his wife, in a way, cannot appreciate this story. And also, it's a story that is told to him by her, which means it's a story between the two of them, which I think is very respectful. It's not about betraying my wife, you know. But the way the friend explains how she came to forgive her mother is really beautiful. The point is that she didn't really have an explanation. She told a story, that's all, the mother. And the daughter received the story as a story, although there's no explanation for her behavior. And the best she can do is like, well, so the narrator is wonderful. So you're saying if the story didn't have the Lederhosen, you wouldn't have forgiven her. Yeah, she says. The whole story is about the Lederhosen. So in a way, this object, this thing, this chance object kind of stands in for the kind of the unknowable. So when she says it's all about the Lederhosen, she doesn't mean it's the Lederhosen. It's that we have to understand that there's something that cannot be said. Exactly what you were saying, Magdalena. There's something that we cannot explain, and so my mother's gift to me was that something that cannot be explained, and I took it as such. This is to me, this is a real love of mother, right? Instead of the poor mother, she was betrayed. No, none of that, easy stuff. It's to sympathize basically with that, a woman having to live with that which cannot be explained, and she's sympathizing with her mother as a woman, if that makes sense. So, of course, the question is always like, okay, so this narrator who we meet again and again, it's the same guy. He of course is younger in some places, older in other places, but it's the same narrator, same Murakami narrator. You just wonder, why can he marry a woman like her? Why does he always end up in it?
I feel like the reason that this woman is the way that she is because she never married. I feel like all the other women in the stories, even when they realize it, it's like they're married, and that's why, like, they have this resentment towards their husband eventually, or they kind of have a complicated relationship with their mother also. But I feel like in this story, she doesn't have that because she didn't end up in a marriage like this, but I just, whenever it goes back to them being married and getting these things, it leads to like resentment, and then resenting her parents, and the reason why this woman is able to speak so openly and be so attractive and active and all of the, what makes her different is the fact that she is not
Married. Yeah.
Yes. That's, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and of course we're not talking about reality. It's the reality as Murakami's fiction tends to fashion in these books.
I mean, it's a controversial thing to say, but I feel like what affirms it is even in the beginning when the wife says she's just unlucky. Like, even her friend views it as, oh, she's not married, she's unlucky.
Right.
So, and there's this discourse among women, that, oh, when you're not married, like, oh, it just, like, it didn't happen for her. Like, she didn't get this, like, you know, lucky card. But when you look at all of these women, I've never, I mean, I haven't read a story, especially in this book, that is about a woman who is so happy with her husband and enjoying her marriage so much. Usually it's always them having to sacrifice something or being chained over something, or later realizing how much they hate that their life ended up being this way. So I think that's what makes her stand out. And I think that if her mother never left her husband, she wouldn't turn out this way. But that gift of the unsaid, growing up and seeing that and seeing her mother tell that story, is what made her this way and made her not marry.
Or the fact that her father was a skirt chaser.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, if she had a sibling, it doesn't mean that her sibling would have turned out the same way.
Yeah.
You know, there's just no. But maybe I should do a course on happy wives.
That would be very interesting.
That would be good.
Yeah, these such stories exist too. So maybe I should. That would be my. But they're rare. That is very true. Very rare. Okay. Any final thoughts?
Actually, kind of contrary to what Magdalena said, I kind of wanted them to like have something with each other, because I was. So,
You mean the husband and the friend?
yeah, but not like sexual, but like a deeper like friendship, because it was so like, it felt so novel, like how the narrator and the friend, like when they talk, he's so like expressive.
Yeah.
And I just found it like really nice to see, like even after reading like the other stories. It made me feel like they should be like
Together.
yeah.
They should be together, right? Yeah. I mean, because these women exist. This is why I was asking that question. Why a guy who's this good? Because he knows how to. He understands things, right? So you wonder why a guy like that shouldn't be with someone a little more like this lady. But he always ends up with, you know, all the wives that we see tend to be kind of like these wives, you know, kind of severe and unloving. Yeah. So that's, yeah. So, but I understand your wish. So, are you okay? Any final thoughts?
For me, actually, I didn't feel like they were gonna make great friends, because I think the husband kind of also distanced himself from her, and yeah, they had this really like nice moment of sharing this story, but I think maybe perhaps it was so special because it was a, you know, once in a lifetime experience, and it wouldn't, probably if they met again to discuss something, it wouldn't have such a carefree, you know, emotion, because it was such an unexpected thing. She came 2 hours earlier than expected, and it just happened, you know. And if they were to carry on with this relationship, it wouldn't have such a sense in it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember like in the lawn mowing story, there's this housewife who's in mourning, and she's drinking all the time. You know, she's not dressed properly, and she's kind of because she's sad, right? The story doesn't tell us all the details, but she's obviously mourning, and she's also very big, and the narrator feels like, oh, this is a big lady, and the male participants, they all found the woman very attractive. So it's not just this narrator. There's something, I think women tend to give men less credit than they deserve. They're not all looking for a certain kind of, woman. Their tastes are very diverse. So I guess what am I trying to say? I'm just saying we hope that more men and women like them will appear. Right, okay, so we'll continue the next session in 2-3 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
you.